Minecraft, I've missed you. While I had fun making the ancient city, I spent so long with the texture pack that I missed things like spruce. Good old spruce.
Hi, Bruce.
I'm ready for my next build. Because I spent so much time rebuilding the ancient city, I wanted to remake something else, and I thought, what better than this eyesore? It's a big brown stain on the underpants of Illager society. Was that too gross? I feel like that might have been too gross.
Nobody got time for that.
It's a fashion faux pas. It's not glamorous or inviting. We're just trying to rob people. But you could do it in style. So I'm gonna go and try to remake the Woodland Mansion. I'm going to start on the staircase as it's the first thing you see upon entering the mansion. Of course, the first step is to remove all of the old blocks, but it didn't feel grand enough, so I expanded it by keeping the entire upper floor of the section open. I tried dark oak steps, but the problem with starting so dark is that it's harder to build up contrast when you have a limited amount of block styles in a limited space. So I used spruce. As you can see, I broke the back wall and out flew 2 blue babies asking me if I had games on my phone. I said yes, I'm playing one right now, that they are the game itself, but they couldn't handle the existential crisis from this revelation, so they flew away in disarray. I didn't like how chunky the original steps were, so I widened the staircase going up and used fence post for a banister. I tried switching over my controller to the crossbar or whatever it's called, but I find it exceptionally difficult on mobile. So I gave up halfway through and just used the same old circle. To make it look like it's been carpeted, I've used red nether bricks following the center portions of the stairs. I'll just throw in a few lecterns and a couple spruce trapdoors. For the flooring, these old-style mansions often have really cool wooden floors, so after messing with that for a bit, I felt the entrance needed some tiled flooring. Using a black checkered pattern, I took different dark and light blocks to see what I preferred, and it ended up being between coal with sandstone or coal with mushroom stem. Looking back on it, I think I prefer the mushroom stem, but I went with sandstone as it has a more antique look. Under the staircase, I've added shelves and a small walkway which will lead to something bigger in a bit. I also forgot to mention that I got rid of the 2 rooms in this area, both this floor and the upper, to make the staircase wider. Even though I've gotten rid of quite a lot here, I wanted it to feel like you're coming into this large space, not knowing what it contains. For the ceiling, I've added a couple stripped beams and steps mapping out an embossed ceiling design. I'll lighten the image so you can see the detail better, but I really love how this one turned out. Alright, exiting this space to the left, you can see that the ceiling is raised from where I've built up the steps. In the first room, we have this stair structure with treasure, and I'm actually going to combine this room with the next one to it, as it's harder to get more details in a small area. It only contained a single pumpkin anyway. I want this room to feel dark and moody, so I'm playing with different textures until I find one I'm happy with. I'm actually taking what would be the exterior wall of the mansion and using it as my inner wall. When I work on the outside, I'll build around it. I chose nether brick, black terracotta, and red glazed terracotta for the walls. For furniture, I wanted a black piano, so I tried to play around with my own design, but it looked like I was making a couch or a bed, so I copied this design from General Ross. Instead of building out keys for the sake of time, I just used pale oak slabs because the ridges kind of look like keys. On the ceiling, I've added nether brick steps and red sandstone slabs, but I was stuck on another block choice, so I just happened to try the smithing table, and the underside was the perfect red. For the rest of the space, I'll add paintings, rugs, chairs, tables, and a fireplace. And because we don't have any small placeable statues in vanilla, this will be a makeshift bust on a pedestal. Because the wood is mostly darker and the statue bust is on oak wood, I wanted to try and tie in the oak to the door frame. However, I couldn't get it to fit the space the way I wanted, so I scrapped it and went with stripped mangrove wood and trapdoors. I think I'll leave the hallways for a bit later. There's another room I want to work on. Over on this side are a bunch of prison cells. This room is the one I accidentally broke into behind the main staircase, so I'll just get rid of that and add the floors. Instead of letting all of this hallway go to waste, I'm going to use it as part of the kitchen. Oh yeah, I didn't say that. This is going to be the kitchen. I'm using tough bricks for the floor, mud bricks for the walls, spruce and dark oak for the ceiling beams, and red terracotta for the ceiling. Right now, I'm just trying to map out where I want things to go. I do want to raise the ceiling though, so if I go above, this is the conference or large dining room, and because the ceilings are so much higher on this floor, I'll be able to raise it by a couple of blocks. Off camera, I finished up the walls and floors and added a couple of large ovens and chandeliers. Off to the side here, I made this a butcher's pantry where I'll hang meats. Since there are always pumpkins inside the Woodland Mansion, I'm making a carving section. I'm just using honey for pumpkin slop on the floor and resin to look like pumpkin bits. Now I'm going to make a prepping table. I've added netherwort to look like the cherries on top of the cakes, but maybe they're spider eyes. And a milk bucket to look like someone is making frosting. On the other side, I'll place granite slabs and a wall piece to look like pork and salami. And I'm sorry, this is a little morbid, but I'll place down a piglin's head. Over on this table, it's going to be a bit more disturbing because I'm placing netherrack on the floor to look like juice. Then I'll place a skull, 2 item frames, one with a bone and another with a bone block, and lastly nether quartz ore because it looks like meat and bones. Over in this oven, after placing down soul campfires and putting 3 of them out, I'll place a couple cauldrons, one filled with pumpkin soup and the other with bone broth. To keep the lighting low in this area, I've just placed candles under pale moss carpet, and now I'll hang weeping vines, granite for salami, more nether quartz ores, and raw iron because it looks like marbled beef. On the other side of the kitchen, I made this table using pistons and sticky pistons because it looks like the creeper's head is oozing. I was going to add just a slime block originally, but I'll use those on the floor. But then I saw the sticky piston and was like, oh, it's perfect. So I'm chuffed with how that turned out. I also use sea pickles because they're green, but then I realized it sort of looks like the creeper's feet. The Woodland Mansion is a very twisted place. I'm going to remove the torches so we get the low light effect. Moving on from the kitchen, I'm going to make my way over to this storage room. Above it, there is a large library, so I decided I would combine the 2 rooms and make it an even larger library, as there are several scattered around the mansion. Then I noticed behind the back wall, there's this bizarre staircase structure I haven't even seen before, so I decided to completely get rid of it to make more space. I continued the same wooden floor pattern that's running throughout the hallways into this room, and then began mapping out where I might want bookshelves to go. I tried making a large window off to the side before I decided a large fireplace would fit better and feel more cozy. I tried using light blue using clay, but felt it was too bright, so I went for dark green terracotta. Because the room is so tall now, I wanted to make a spiral staircase going to a second level that will align with the second floor, but I end up moving this to another spot using dark oak stairs. I noticed there was actually another large library nearby, so I'm going to get rid of this bedroom and switch the 2 rooms so that this becomes part of the massive library I'm building, and the smaller library here will become another bedroom. Okay, so as you can see, I've completely gotten rid of what I previously built because I didn't like the layout. The room really needed large windows, so I've added those to this wall. Okay, this is more of what I'm thinking. Now I want to bring the spiral staircase over, and I'll add dark oak trapdoors so it's easier to climb up. And you'll never guess it, but there's another library. This is a very learned group of illagers. So I'm going to connect the main library with this smaller room as if it's more study focused. I'm going to keep the original bench design, but I'll add prismarine steps since it looks like tufted fabric and it's a nice contrast to all the red I've been using. And for flooring, I've made a checkered pattern flipping the direction of stripped dark oak logs for something different. I've gone ahead and decorated the room off camera for the sake of time. And for the ceiling, I've left it open because I wanted to make a glass roof, but because I'm undecided, I'll wait until I build the exterior. It's funny to me how the rooms don't seem all that big until I see myself standing in it. Well, right next to the library is a bedroom, and this bedroom is also right next door to that library room that I wanted to turn into a bedroom, so I'll get rid of the dividing wall and divide this whole space into two. For the mansion, I'm sticking to the blocks red concrete, black terracotta, and dark green terracotta because I felt they were the best look for dark and moody. I tried lodestone for the bedroom flooring, but it feels too bright. So I start with a placement for the bed, and I've used nether brick, nether wart blocks, and red banners. Then a couple of nether brick chairs. I've changed out the floor for blast furnaces because they have a darker gray tiled look, changed the rug for mangrove wood, a couple tables, paintings, quartz slabs for pillows, added a mangrove wardrobe, a servant's bell, and made some small ceiling decal with smithing tables. I tried to give the other bedroom some variation by changing the wall color theme, and while I like it, I think the black terracotta room is my favorite. I decided finally on a design for the hallways using red concrete, redstone lamps, dark oak wood, and red candles. For the curved evoker staircase, the main staircase I built leads over to this bedroom, but I'm going to get rid of this and make it another hallway so both sides have access to the third floor. So this is my redesign. I've kept it simple and used pale moss carpet as a rug and lengthened the windows to the ceiling as I will throughout all of the mansion. I've kept this spot bare, as you won't actually see it, and I still want the evoker to spawn in. I've also made all of the ceiling out of waxed, weathered, coppered bulbs. I'm going to keep the illager face, but I wanted to try and make it look a bit more worn by changing out the wool blocks for andesite, moss, coal, bone, and dark grey concrete powder. I don't know that it made that much of a difference, but I do prefer it. The first room on the right, I've kept the 3 beds and followed the same theme as I did for the other bedrooms. I actually liked how in this room, there's a rose painting, but what looks like a dead rose next to it, further adding to how illagers struggle to maintain and grow life. Now this is a medium library, but I'm going to change it to a flowers/garden room using yellow terracotta, stone, and of course, dark oak. But when I was replacing the other wall, I realized there is another medium library. I'm starting to think that they're just hoarding. So I've broken down the wall and joined the two rooms together. I'll use mud and mud bricks for the floor before throwing in some podzol, moss, and dirt blocks. Then I'll add in a couple small ponds. I've added firefly bushes because they were just so pretty I couldn't resist, and now I'm mixing in dried grass to show things dying. For this wall, I'm going to add 3 rows of pale oak saplings, and I'll bring the same idea to the other wall, but with eye blossoms. After adding a couple of paintings and dried vines from the ceiling, the room is complete. Okay, so we have a large dining room on the 3rd floor, which weirdly is right next to the ritual room. I didn't call it that, by the way, that's what it's called. It feels very occult, so I'm gonna change that, but first, I've carried the floor pattern into the room and set up 5 tables instead of 4, so more people can dine. I tried using pistons for the plates, but it looked visually too much, so I did a mix of sea pickles, turtle eggs, cake, and skeleton heads on quartz ore, and carpeted the floor with pale moss blocks. For the ritual room, I thought about turning it into a small pantry. As I tore the walls down, I realized there was all this extra space on the roof. So I mapped out a hallway and an extra room. I don't know why I thought this was necessary, as there are already too many rooms for me to make over. Now that I've finished up the same hallway design, it's time to start on the new rooms. This space is so narrow, I'll take advantage of the height by building a second level for fresh produce. I'm making the new room another flower room, but this time with more of a nod to the original rooms, where there are just terracotta pots with flowers, often containing alliums. But I added torch flowers because I thought it added an extra pop of color and ties in more of the yellow walls. And I ended up switching out the large pots for this painting purely because it has a checkered floor just like this room. I've got to pick up the pace, so I'll just throw something together for the last few rooms, starting with this conference room. Even though I've mostly kept red as the hallway color, it just felt fitting for this space. And I wanted to keep the table the same, just switching it out for dark oak. I did feel rushed, so I'm not entirely happy with the empty walls, but maybe I'll come back and fix it. I saw this room as the place villagers come together to scour over maps looking for what spaces to dominate. So I did end up making a janky map wall. Don't judge it, okay? You get the idea. I also thought I'd try adding this small fish pond. You know how rich, fancy businesses will sometimes have walls made of fish tanks? Yeah, this turned out nothing like that, and I think I'll go back to the wooden floor. Right next to the yellow garden room is the small bedroom. So I've made it over, remaking the fireplace and sticking to the same design as the previous rooms. Going back downstairs, there is a small dining room, but I'm going to turn it into a terracotta room, because Woodland Mansions have a lot of terracotta pots. They've got to store them somewhere. 2 rooms over from the piano room is another prison. I didn't like how there were a random bunch of cells, and I wanted it to feel like you had to really walk through it to find them. It adds to the creepiness of the mansion that upon entering the first room seems somewhat misleading. And then the deeper you get into the mansion, the more twisted things you find. I took advantage of this mansion being somewhat buried on a couple of its sides, so I've dug back a bit into the rock to make a back area behind the cells where there will be tables, cages, and strange bioreactor tanks. I used a deeper green glass and iron bars so it looked weathered as if with algae. And copper for this room looked off, so I changed it out for mossy cobblestone, and in the larger tank I'll have a hostile mob, and in the smaller tank I'm placing a skull on its spine. I'm going to wait until the end of this video to show the finished space because I wanted to add in mobs, but I'm keeping it peaceful to build. In the next room we have what's called the nature room. There is this running water feature, so I'm going to carry this idea over and make it into a bathroom. I've gone ahead and added the walls and floors, that way I can focus on decorating it. I've also added a much smaller tree as a nod to the original design, and following the theme, it will feel like a sort of grungy oasis. Can those two things coincide?
But the wall's supposed to go around my swamp.
Adding these arches also breaks the room up a bit, so that when I place furniture, it doesn't look like what's called wallitis, meaning the middle of the room looks bare because all the furniture has been pushed against the walls. In this corner, I'm going to make a toilet following that clay pot's design. I've used a grindstone as a loo roll holder, and the turtle eggs look like loo rolls on the shelf. For the bathtub area, we have soap, wash cups, and I use snow for towels since you can get different levels. Next to the toilet, I'm going to make shelves. And I'm using different colored slabs to look like folded towels. Lastly, I'm making a long bench and a towel rack design also from that clay pot, except I made my own towel patterns to try and match the slabs I used. The green one was harder to do, but I think I've gotten the idea down. I also made the banner mirror gray because I wanted it to look like it was reflecting the gray walls. If I go out of the kitchen, there is a small storage room. I've kept this pretty simple and close to the original, just fancier. I think if I remade it, I would put it all on the walls and place a long table in the middle so it doesn't feel so cramped. Leaving this room, we enter the statue room. Illagers are pretty obsessed with themselves, so I imagine that the mansion was built around an ancient statue, so I dug about 5 blocks down and turned it into stone with emerald eyes. I want to make it a water feature, so I'll make a couple of waterfalls pouring out of the eyes. Is it crying? I don't know. He's probably pretty stiff having to stand in the same position for eons. I'd be crying too. But I like that it's this kind of offbeat room. I couldn't do much to the ceiling because the library floor is above it, so I've added moss blocks, roots, and stalagmites. Back on the second floor, I've turned this hallway into a mad laboratory, just like I used the space downstairs for a larger kitchen, which you can also access on the right side of the main staircase. Every time I'm in a Woodland Mansion, I notice how they seem to want to recreate life, but can't. Now, I don't follow Minecraft theories or fanbase forums, so I'm not sure if I'm close or off base here, but I think it's safe to assume illagers covet villager people. They hate them. They'll destroy them, but they want what they have. However, because of their dark and twisted ways, they can't grow life, they can only destroy it. Or try to keep it frozen in time. They have rooms dedicated to farms and flowers, but they're obsessed with trying to create life themselves. Really quickly, I'm going to make some sort of radioactive slime canisters using slime blocks, water, lime glass panels, magma blocks, and beacons for low light as they pour liquid over plants. So I imagine they steal allays and iron golems because of their power and hope to harness it to make their own. They're like Sauron's army, taking dwarf and elven men and women and distorting them into the orc and Uruk-hai, because J.R.R. Tolkien came up with different theories for how his own orcs were created, some being from stone, others being tortured elves by the Dark Lord Morgoth. I think we have something similar here. Illagers can't hope to recreate life or even sustain it well because they are filled with darkness, a corruptible flesh trying to make pure life. So they use all these rooms to concoct experiments to make their own iron golems, and to use the life force from plants and vegetation to place it into, maybe themselves, in order to become more powerful. Now I'm making a drink stand, and I've used gold, waxed copper, and a diamond block with similarly colored glass pouring out as liquid. We have soul juice, strider bile, and blaze sweat. And in the middle, here is another feature where I've just placed a lot of lime glass panels and slime blocks to look like this strange substance is pouring out of another larger device, as another experiment is being performed. For this wall, I'm building another biotank, and the pipes were inspired by average tuna, which I don't know why I'm laughing because my name is literally Eldergrill. So I'll attach those and make it appear like it's pulling its fuel source from somewhere. I've also added this vending machine I first saw on Pinterest and followed the credits to Reddit, and I can't say this name. After spending time in this room, it just doesn't feel right, like it's too eclectic. So off camera, I went around and rearranged the room, and I think it flows much better now. I didn't want it to look too sci-fi because the original rooms in the mansion never seemed too advanced, but I think I went a little more cyber than I intended. So I tried to tone it down a bit by using spruce wood throughout the room, and I've replaced the plants here with green parrots to appear as if they're being changed by the green liquid. I've also extended the juice bar and moved the biotanks to this corner, where I'll eventually place a couple mobs inside. Just 2 more rooms and we're done inside. Connected to this mad lab is another conference room. I've decided to keep the theme connected so it serves as a place where the illagers can discuss various experiments and what they'll do next. I wonder what their conversations would be like.
For our first experiment, we have the iron cageum. What do? Blast it with a pumpkin cannon? Why is it all messy?
It's disgusting.
We can't seem to stop it spewing out its seeds, but we've connected it to a vault spawner. We haven't gotten it to move yet, and it still accidentally gives out goods to villagers, but when it works, it will give out pain!
Yeah!
Next, we ended up talking the Enderman Council into giving us one of their dragon heads.
Oh.
Yeah, we lost Cherry on that one.
Wait, you guys can tell me what to do when it gets here. Oh, you're a girl dragon, milady. It was Mindy first.
Hey, can anyone let me out?
It's dark in here. It smells like feet. I kind of like it. Yeah, that wasn't a loss.
We believe as long as we keep the head saturated, we can keep it producing saliva, which helps to create crystals.
And what do the crystals do?
Well, right now they make a really nice paperweight.
I could use that.
Stinks though.
Now, a green slimicky. You know, like parakeet, but with slime.
Yeah, we get it.
Amateur
Move
hour.
on already.
Well, right now it seems to only poop out green sludge instead of dive bombing the villagers, but it seems to make a massive mess, so we consider that progress.
At least it's something.
And then we have the terracotta golem. This one is purely so it will go out
And inflict pain.
Calm down, Henry. Yeah, so inappropriate
Never
time.
learns.
So this one will go out just to collect more terracotta pots.
Oh,
That's nice.
We could always use more pots.
For what? Your tears?
Oh,
Can't believe I
honey,
wasted
delicious
an hour of my
treats.
life.
Yeah,
Maybe
till
next time
week.
you'll have snacks.
He's been showing us the same experiments for the past 4 months.
I know. That is all we got.
I was really unhappy with the red conference room, so I redesigned it by giving it more furniture and changing the wood to spruce. But it's still not my favorite. I don't know what to do. I really don't know why this room in particular is giving me so much trouble. Perhaps simpler would have been better, but here we are. Now it's time to move on to the outside. As you can see, there is a lot of surface area to cover. I thought about what blocks I wanted to use and decided I would stay on the dark brown theme because I still want this to look like the Woodland Mansion, but improved. So I'm expanding the original front stairs / porch into a much larger one that reaches the edges of the outer walls using deep slate. I'm also digging down 2 blocks so that going up the stairs it feels more grand. Then because ironically spruce tree blocks match dark oak planks better than the actual dark oak tree, I'm using the spruce wood to make 3 arches. But I forgot to add the actual wall, so I'm going in with black terracotta, and then I'll use dark oak blocks for detailing. For the 2 very large windows on either side, I'm building out a slight expansion. This will actually help with getting from the 2nd floor on the outside to the rooftop above. For the balcony above the 3 arches, I'm zigzagging more spruce and creating window frames using dark oak trapdoors, stairs, and fence posts. Then I'll decorate with some flower boxes using berry bushes and spruce trapdoors, while changing up the flag pattern that I used on the extension. This is where the balcony connects to the 2nd level. I'm removing part of this wall, which looks uneven by 1 block on this side, but it's because it's centered on the inside red wall. So on the side where there's an extra space, I'm adding ladders so we can get up to the rooftop, which I will show in a little bit. Now some more finishing touches for the front of the house, and then we will go all the way up. On the first rooftop, I'm going to fill the space with oak leaves to make a maze. I just threw some shapes together and added a couple of chests because I think this is a feature the mansion could actually have. In fact, it would be cool if behind the mansion there was a deep maze with mobs you had to dodge. I won't be doing that for this video just because I've done so much already, but it's definitely an idea. Then over here, using more deep slate, I'm just going to build another sort of greenhouse. I accidentally started by making it square, but I'll expand it in a moment so it's more rectangular. This was a fairly simple design I just put together, but I thought the gray glass kind of gave it a foggy look. It's not used, everything dies here. Then using podzol and a mix of bushes and ferns and dried leaves and firefly bushes, of course, we have this cool little area. For this part on the second floor, I've decided to make it a little more detailed by adding bigger logs, and I'll make a little rooftop canopy sort of thing. I haven't fully decided what I want to do on this very top roof. On this very top roof. So I've just added some vines to fill it out more, and we can head up the stairs. I've also gone ahead and added 2 layers of grass blocks, so you can imagine how fun that was. But because I don't have an idea for this yet, I'm going to decorate the rest of the grounds in the front. Next to the front steps, I'm using deep slate tiles and oak leaves to create a circle. I'm dividing it into 4 so that there's a pathway running through the center, using a mix of dirt path and cobble deep slate. The outer portions are divided off with mud and mud bricks, where in the center I'm placing 4 unusable water fountains. Surrounding the fountains, I'm switching between tall ferns and firefly bushes on every other block. And in the back, I'm just making a small staircase that leads out of the forest. When looking at the mansion to the left, I'm going to make another garden area with these large arches I've designed. The base will be a mix of deep slate, but the pillars are deep slate tiles. Then an anvil, cauldron, and hopper stacked with an oak leaf block and vines will complete the piece. I've gone ahead and fixed it up, adding a mud brick wall in the back to close off the space, and kept the similar circle border design. I've also finished up pathways, adding some dried bushes, fire pits, and barrels. And in this back corner, I've made a small gazebo to fill up the empty space. Here is a little statue, art feature, using more anvils, a cauldron, a hopper, and heavy cores. In the back of the mansion, I've dug down a few blocks to make a large rectangular pond using deep slate, moss, and mossy cobblestone. I'll also put down a layer of grass blocks across this whole area. Because the biome is blending into another one here, we lose the muted tones. I was a bit disappointed because I thought the pale water would make it look murky and unkept, but instead we have bright blue water. Oh well. After placing down different plants, I'm going to add tadpoles and codfish. I chose cod because tropical fish look too bright and happy. Then on this stone wall, I'm making some sort of arched greenhouse. I'm leaving it somewhat buried in the rock as if a rockfall has overtaken some of the garden. Well, I've had to stop. For some reason, my game kept lagging terribly and crashing, which is strange considering my last build was way bigger. But I think I've made a lot of progress. I've terraformed, I've gardened, and made a few adjustments. Mainly this canopy, which I've turned into a clock tower. I wasn't able to add anything onto the very top roof, but I think the most important parts of this build have been accomplished. I actually did get myself a little lost in this maze, so I think that's a good sign.
The Woodland Mansion, a dark and mysterious place where no one knows what goes on behind closed doors. Well, if they had doors. The eerie glow from the midnight sky, the consuming fog from the depths below, swallows the mansion as it lies in wait for its next victim. Don't let its outer walls fool you. Life does not grow here. It is contained, bound, like a puppet held on strings. It can never hope to reach out and cut them. And so whatever secrets are being held within each room, one never truly knows. For what purpose could they have with so many clay pots? Except, perhaps, to contain the remnants of their prey turned back into dust and flowers to hide the truly distasteful actions of a people consumed with an illness, a sickness of the heart and mind. So if you should ever find yourself here, quickly run the other way, because if you don't listen, you might find you have to stay.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit that pollux, that outer appendage, the stout flesh and bone that sticks out the side of your hand, that thumb. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe and become a krill, because who doesn't want to become a little shrimpy boy? And leave a comment. Remember, I love you, Jesus loves you more, and bruh, you're one in a krillion. Yeah, let me get a Shin and Toxic.
One Shin and Toxic coming up, and for you, sir? Oh, we don't have it in stock. Okay, one with a twist. You want that eyeball or frog spawn?
Make that two, pretty.
I've only been dead 24 hours. I'm too young for this. Make that a double.
Here's your drink.
I'm ending my shift.